Before we begin, I want to name that it's been a bit of a raw day, few days. A lot of emotions in my household, holidays. It's my birthday. And thinking about Taylor a lot, amnesia poetry. Yeah, and if you hear tears in the back, it's either my dad or my son. Yeah. So our guest today is Chelsie Diane, mystic, dreamer, poet, mountain mama, old book collector, and I'm sure a lot more as well. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Same. And like I said before, much love to Michael Mead for bringing us here, in the way that he did.
Yes.
When we first spoke, you mentioned how at a breaking point in your life, a presence whispered to you that if you began writing poetry, it would save you. Can you describe this time before and after poetry?
I can. I'd been writing poetry since I can hold a pen. I was really it saved me from a very young age. I grew up on a fundamentalist farm in Missouri, and my parents were divorced, and my father was a rocker. And so it was drastically contrasting worlds. And so I would get the old books at estate sales, free boxes of old books. We lived on a dirt road in Missouri. And because antiquated things are considered holy in that world, my mom allowed me to read old books, but what they didn't know is I was reading Jane Eyre, I was reading Les Miserables, which nobody was speaking it to me, so I was saying Les Miserables, and I still have problems with pronunciation because no one taught me anything. I was right, and so I was this very strange child that was starving for depth. And I was writing then, and then I took a long break because I fell into the trap of like we do, marrying the doctor, and the 7-bedroom house that I built, and the car, and the diamond, and the American dream. And the poet was dead. Or almost. She was on life support. And I found myself so far from my inner child, from the poet, and I had participated. I wasn't victim. I had participated in creating every aspect of this life. And I saw myself in none of it. And that's where I found myself at a medical conference with my husband at the time, on actually Caesar's Palace, on the penthouse suite. And he was sleeping. And I walked out to the balcony, and I looked down at all the life happening below me. And all I wanted was that. I wanted to feel myself as I felt myself in the other in that moment. And the only thing between that I felt was jumping. It's like, I have twin babies asleep at home in Missouri in their beds. There's no way that I can leave this until they're 18. And I can't do this for another day, let alone 18 years. And it's time to go. And I took off button by button these pajamas that my mother-in-law had bought me from Saks. And I threw them off the edge and watched them drop. And I was like, okay.
Hmm.
And then I got a little stool and I stood up on it and got to the edge. And I was just ready. And there was this voice that came to me in that moment that said, stop. Before you do that, try one thing. Just try one thing. Just try one thing. And it was so loud. It was like, just one thing. Will you just try one thing? And I remember pausing and being like, I'll try one thing, like I'm terrified. I'll try one thing. Because this is loud. Okay. And I remember like stepping down from the thing and being like, what's the one thing? And it was the most unexpected sentence that I could have possibly like thought. And it was, write a poem every single day for a year. And then if that doesn't do it, and you don't skip a single day, you come back here and you fucking jump. Because it's not worth it. If that doesn't do it, none of this is worth it. And I said, okay. And I fell asleep naked, freezing my ass on this balcony, crying myself to sleep. And I remember like I was so distant from my ex-husband, like it wasn't a soul relationship. It was so like matrixy that he the next morning opened up the door and he was just like, are you ready for breakfast? Like I'm naked on the balcony. Like get ready, we need to go to breakfast. And then I've got a conference. And I was like, oh shit, And so I wrote a poem every single day. And within, let's see, this was February. Within 6 months, I had moved to California with my 3 children. It was just the next right step after next right step. And it was finally listening to my inner being every single day. It was like, I believe that we have this pearl inside of us, right? And if you pluck it out and hold it, it's the same pearl. If you dig deep enough and hold it in front of your eyes, every single person has that same one. And so when I was writing anonymously my poetry that my ex-husband had no idea that I was writing and posting it online with a peony as my profile picture. So poems and peonies. And that was my name. And I was anonymous. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can live if I just listen every day to the next right step that's coming out of me. It's telling me what to do. And then I was doing it. And sometimes it was just like, put away the bread, And I'd be like, okay, I can do that. And then sometimes it was like, buy a one-way ticket. And then it was like, file for divorce. And then it was like, say yes to this podcast opportunity. And then I started writing. This man, bless his heart, gave me a job writing audio dramas in the UK for his podcast. And I started feeling like, oh, I could make a living. Like I could do this, And me and the kids rented this shack in Topanga. There was a rattlesnake on the floor when we moved in.
I read that in the book, which is now a rattle.
It was now a rattle because it was by my baby, my son. And
Shovel?
I got a shovel, And I killed this rattlesnake. And it still like breaks my heart to think about. But like
apparently it's okay to do it if they're in the house.
It's okay if they're in the house.
They're not supposed to be in the house.
And it's okay if it even, I wouldn't do it today, even if it was in my house, honestly. But I would do it again if it was coiled and hissing at my son.
Yeah,
like
near my children. 100%.
She was gone.
Yeah.
And that was deeply metaphoric. But we were living in this shack. I was no heat, no AC, like I was no screens on the windows. I loved it. It was my home with my kids. And it was actually an old Airstream attached to like this built out movie set that was like, that's all I could afford. And I had this carpenter cut out we found this Mongolian yurt door in half in the canyon, half out. It was so magical. And he installed this man did for like $100 for me and put it in between so the kids could go from the Airstream to my room.
Wow.
And I made a home, and I didn't skip a single day writing a poem. And I wrote my deepest desires, and I had to fake it till I made it, believing that those desires were holy. And every voice that came up and was like, you know, this is bad, you're getting a divorce, like all these judgmental forces, I rejected. And I would say, my desire is holy. And it was so radical for me. It was the first time I'd done this in my whole life. And I created the life that was my own. And it was one of those things, like your dad was talking about, like teaching. The shaman just taught him how to dance by dancing beside him, taught him the rhythm. It was exactly that. And that I just was like, I'm just going to live my truth out loud every single day in these poems. And thousands of women came and they're like, oh, that's my pearl too. Me too, me too, me too. And then every day when I wrote my truth, women were like, fuck, me too. You're speaking what I can't speak. And then they started speaking it. And then I was like, okay, let's speak it together. Let's get together and do this together. And I started teaching it. And then thousands of women started believing that their desires were holy. They were taking back their life as their own, but all the while I'm doing it at the same time.
100%.
And so like, I'm just daring to be alive and live that out loud, even when it hurt like hell, living it out loud to, you know, but also refusing to stay there, like putting it in the poem, letting it live in the poem, and, refusing to stay there, because otherwise my head would be in an oven, like Sylvia, like 100%. If I kept living in that place and didn't create from the light, then I'd be dead. So there's that point of what I teach that's really important to me to say anytime I get an opportunity to speak it as a poet. And that's, you can't live there. You can't live there. And you can create poetry from light just as much as you can create from your darkness. And when you put it into the poem, you let it fucking live there and you give it. And then there's a higher way that I'm teaching. And the higher way is that you manifest and create your life, your love, your desire from a place of healing and light. And that's the piece that I am here to speak. Yeah.
I needed to hear it all. Thank you.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned it a bit there, but to expand, how would you define a poet and their purpose, or maybe define the type of poet you are if that's too broad and vague, and your purpose, which again you touched on a bit?
Yeah.
But I love that the idea of the definition of a poet. I have it tattooed on my arm. I think there was a poem Jack Kerouac wrote called The Definition of a Poet, which is why I tattooed that.
Incredible.
That's what that intro that I wrote was about, like all these descriptions. So yeah, I'm curious around your perspective on the purpose of a poet.
Yeah. We're supposed to feel the whole fucking world and tell about it. We're supposed to feel it and be in awe of it. And we're supposed to be the noticers. We're supposed to feel it. And then when people read it, they can feel it too and remember, right? Yeah, my only job here really is beauty and love and pleasure and to feel the whole fucking world. That's my only job.
Yeah, it's funny. Our last guest was a man named Rodney Norman, who's a comedian philosopher.
Okay.
And he talked a lot about that decision we have between something painful happening, and then we can compound the pain by clenching and then sometimes taking on that identity of a suffering being, which is almost a
Yes.
bit of a tantrum.
Right.
I've spent a lot of my life like that.
Yeah.
I do feel that some of us have our process to get to the other place, but I guess I'm saying it to agree that it's actually harder for sure to receive pleasure and to,
Yes.
enjoy, and just how deep my grooves go into self-loathing and punishment and then all the different traps that I fall into. So I love that definition and reminder and reflection.
Yeah. And yeah, we have to feel it.
Yeah,
We
the
have
pain
to
when
feel
it
it.
comes. Yeah.
We have to feel it, but we can't fucking live there.
Yeah, I love that difference.
Yeah.
I love that difference. So as I mentioned, the name of today's episode is Exit Wound Butterfly. What does that phrase evoke in you, if anything?
Actually, something like really specific. It's an image I had. After my marriage, I fell in love with who you fall in love after the doctor, right? Which is the artist, mystic. He lived in India for years. He was Peter Pan. And slapped me awake to myself is what he did. And he gave me this tea towel, and it said, and it was the Ram Dass quote about being cocooned and how the butterfly has to go into darkness. And once you're in the cocoon, it's the exit wound. It's the place where it's inevitable. It's like when you're pushing out the baby and you are, 9 centimeters dilated. There's no going back. It's inevitable. You are cocooned. It has to happen this way. And those words I played over and over and over. So it has to happen this way. Because I tortured myself and beat myself up and shamed myself for leaving not an abusive marriage, a good marriage, and one that wasn't mine. And what that meant for my children, and so much around that it's like this tsunami of like God in you when you get in touch with your desire, and you absolutely have no other choice. When you really choose to align with your truest self, you have no other choice. And it's only like Saturn return, massive pain, eruption when you are that far off the path, right? And I was really far off the path. And so, yeah, I think of, when you say that, I think of it's inevitable. It has to happen this way. And I feel like I hold the hands of women every day in the same way. And I say to them, like, I know where you are, and I know you're beating yourself up, but you need to remember that, like, it's inevitable. And you are going to, if you keep asking questions, if you stay curious, you're going to end up at home.
I think the inevitable part should make its way into the song that we create.
Yeah, I love that.
What is your relationship with the muse, the well in which you dip your pen? In my experience, the best poetry emerges not from an act of willing words into existence, but from listening in the silence and dictating what you hear. Do you relate to this? I also wanted to add that you do kind of have to force it sometimes, but
Yeah.
even then, because I'm similarly writing every day right now, I'm working on a book,
Yeah.
which is a nice coincidence. And I've done a project like that before. And of course, you come across days where you absolutely sit there and you don't hear anything.
Yeah,
But then I
absolutely.
realized that is hearing something,
Yes.
than not hearing something, you know?
Totally.
So yeah, just that idea of,
Mm.
which you mentioned before, the listening versus the I'm making, you know, the relationship with wherever poetry comes
Right.
from.
So I believe that poetry is channeled from source. I believe that true poetry is from subconscious dream work, that you cannot write a real poem if it's from a conscious space. Throw it out. If it's written from a conscious space, it's shit. And I'm kind of the Simon Cowell of teachers in that way, where I will be like, that's shit. Tell me the truth, you know? And what's, you know, where it's got to be from a dreamier space. It's got to be from the subconscious. It's got to start from that seed. That, and so, but about the muse, I started writing as a way to save my life, and then it turned into this love letters to the Peter Pan that I told you about, as a way to speak to a man that I couldn't anymore. And that was never speaking to him. It was all me. I actually tracked him down in the desert, showed up at his work, and handed him 300 poems that I had written about him, and I had typed them up in a stack. And he flipped through them and he was like, these don't even describe me.
Like you were writing to your animus,
he goes,
if you will?
Yeah, he goes, these are about you. Mm-hmm. And he was so wise. And I was like, holy fuck. You're right. You are, he's like, this isn't even like all these character traits. Like you are taking, you know, basically what I was doing is I was taking all the sparks within myself, rubbing it all over him and saying, now I can love you. And he saw that. And so then I was like, oh shit, now I've got to do the real journey, which is about nothing external. It wasn't ever about this dude. It was about my own. And so I went to a different country every month. Like when I didn't have my kids, for those 5 days to 7 days, I would schedule a trip somewhere in the world. And so the past 2.5 years, I did it every single time completely alone. And I became my own muse and became like, even to the point where I was turning myself on. I became exactly what I wanted in him. So all of these things that I loved in him, I made live on in me, to the last detail, where he told a story about smoking a bowl on this specific church in Lyon, France. And I went there and smoked a bowl, and on that stair, like I became what I was searching for.
Makes me think of the big O.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had to write the book, to write that book. Yeah.
I think that's the journey for everyone to some extent, you know, in all the different paths: poetry, marriage, divorce, parenthood, not being a parent.
Yep.
Like they're all leading to that, hopefully,
Yes.
or I think it's inevitable, it's going to happen, that home that you said. And one idea that I bring up a lot, that it's all making me think of too, is this man, Christopher M. Bosch, who wrote a book called LSD in the Mind of the Universe, says in his journeying through the universe that he was told that hell and hell realms are not the opposite of heaven or places of punishment. They're purification processes, which are actually for the spiritually ambitious, because there's slower paths to go. So that like totally. And then Michael Meade, when I mentioned it to him, he said how he loves that idea of reclaiming hell and how
Yes.
like dipping into, you know, Hades was an
Right.
old tradition. That's where the seeds of creation come from. And you would go there a couple times a day. And now in today's age, if you have any antennas to the world, you're being shown Hades.
Absolutely.
And that's that dance. So it's interesting that you and Rodney, the past two guests, are kind of bringing that reminder of the light. And I still am dancing with that, you
Yeah.
know, because I feel like I've broken through to a new state of joy, not the tortured martyr. But yeah, I'm just curious about, you know, the dance of pain and grief and
Yes.
how much of it is like what I signed up for, how much of it is old behavioral shit,
Oh, okay. That.
you know.
That.
And yeah, I don't know what is what.
Me either.
Yeah. But I'm
Yeah,
untangling.
it's the question.
I'm untangling and then
Yeah.
retangling and
Yeah.
But to continue on that, in that vein, I love that we're getting to do a poetry episode on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy Death Day is really what the Hearse flow is all about. But yes, thank you, really. Double 18.
Amazing.
Crazy. For me, being a poet is like being a pirate, or perhaps being in the FBI, licensed to kill, to live outside the law, and to be an acceptable weirdo. How do you experience navigating the dance between society and wilderness, mother and mad one, civilian and outlaw, soul and animal?
Mm.
So what I mean, just to clarify a little, is like at a young age, realizing the tensions in this world, realizing, in my experience, we're on a magical adventure, exposed to fairy tales, Waldorf, but then being in New York City and seeing how most of my friends, if not all, did not care about that.
Right.
And realizing the more you try to, especially now, talk about, that's why on this show, it's not that I steer away from it, but I don't really care what people's beliefs are about the current state of affairs. I mean, it's all just like fluctuating things.
Absolutely.
So that's why I donned the outfit of poet, which is not really, I mean, I think everyone's a poet. I'm just whatever I am. But it felt like one of the best disguises to be able to kind of trick myself and others to get beneath those initial fences.
Totally.
Which is what I mean by the pirate or FBI.
Love that.
Yeah. And so that dance between, which you mentioned, you know, being in this world, in the society, taking those hits, being a mom, dealing with troubles that you mentioned before based off shining your light.
Right.
Whatever you want to talk about in that vein, because
Yeah.
I'm very curious from other people
Yes.
on the path, you know.
Yes. So my I'd say my like relationship to spirituality is fascinating. When I was 12, this massive scar on my leg. I was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma, and I had 3 months to live. So the way that I see life, even even from that point on, was this is all bonus. Like I'd wake up and I'd be like, and that honestly has led to me being very good at leadership and like, fuck this shit, let's live, and the hedonism. And it makes relationships very difficult to me, romantic relationships, because I'm like, why do you give a shit about small things? You could die tomorrow. But really, this is what you're talking about, the reconciliation of being a mother, like living a life in the 3D and really truly believing that your thoughts create your reality and that your fantasy and your poetry, I've watched it happen in my life. I've watched myself be extremely magical and create the life that I've created out of my own dreams and my imaginings, which is actually more real to me than the other bullshit. And people say that I'm living in fantasy, so be it. Because it's working.
Well, everyone's
like,
living in fantasy.
We're all living in some kind of fantasy.
Someone else's fantasy most of the time.
Yes, and I'm in my own fantasy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that place of like just being like, okay, I died when I was 12, and this is all bonus, and that's why my soul is like. I mean, I realized that I came into this life as a Spartan. I reincarnated, and I'm like a general soul. I am. I want to go there. I do want to burn through karma. I'm not afraid of death. And that is uncomfortable to a lot of people. And I want to look it in the eye as much as I can, so I can expand more and grow more. And I love Earth. You know, I do. I feel like I keep coming back to this planet because I'm in love with it. It's fucking glorious and beautiful, and the ocean and and like the smell of my newborn baby's heads, and like and sex, and like I am fully embodied, and that makes everything so deeply painful for me. It does, because I feel it all. And it makes relationships, like, quite honestly, hard as hell for me. Yeah. That's where my growth is. That's my growth point. And I'm like, it's so much easier when I'm just in my own fantasy, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate to the general thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've been like a leader kind of guy for a long time.
Totally.
And recently, that's why I tattooed my head after Taylor died, and my whole back. My brother, we did a whole transformation.
Wow.
Probably going to do the whole body. Never
Cool.
thought I'd do that. Not the face, till I'm an old man. I'll probably face it up too. But trying to transition into I've left enough blood on the field now that I don't need to fight in the field the way I used to and exhaust myself. Totally. And then I can kind of sit back and, you know, I've earned my limping and transitioning, because I feel like you'll burn out if you soldier too long.
Totally.
You know, and I'm curious after this, whenever hopefully we know each other for you know, sure, a long time, and I'm curious to learn from you around certain things that you've mentioned that you do in the castle. Always had that dream, and this whole show is meant to be a retreat, you know, traveling and bringing people together to create, and maybe we could do that.
Totally.
A pink hearse peonies
Fun.
castle.
Absolutely.
But I feel your general spirit, and it's nice to be sitting back in the whatever,
same,
with a lot of scars and a lot of blood, and feeling peace and joy.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Okay.
That was going to be the last question.
Oh,
so let's bring it
really?
in now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. I want to know, as you were speaking, my biggest question is, what I'm going to choose next. Because I see very clearly multiple, right, timelines. And it's like, I know, for me, life doesn't just happen to me. I choose everything. And so it's like, okay, I could be in a relationship and like have a really calm, steady thing with this person. I could blow up my work in massive ways and be single for the next 10 years and build a massive empire. I could be with a man that supports my work and have both in some sort of way, but not burn off karma. Or I could be with who I am with right now, who is also a Spartan. And puts up with zero of my shit. And it's like this, and I mean this even more than relationships. I mean, just talking about choosing our path. It's like what you're saying, going back to the war to create more expansion. And there's times in my life where I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna chill out for a while. But my soul is like, let's pick the hard things so you can expand more. And I judged people for a long time for doing that because of the holistic psychologist bullshit. And now I'm like, I actually think that there are souls that are meant to just push themselves their whole life and expand into further love and expansion and light. And I think that there are souls that are meant to come here and be really comfortable.
Totally.
And sweet. And so I think you just got to like reconcile what your soul wants from you.
Sure. 100%. So the question is, how do I choose?
Yeah.
I would say at this stage, for better or for worse, I choose not to choose.
Okay.
There's old quotes which may be traps, but for me feel important on this journey. Things like, those who the gods wish to punish, they grant their wishes. Or if you want to know how to make God laugh, tell him or her your plans. Or those who the gods wish to destroy, they first make famous.
Totally.
So there's these things where I'm like, I've been a successful creator for 22 years, but I haven't figured out how to make money doing this. I've made spurts of money, but I spend money to do this work.
Of course.
And for a long time, depending on who I talk to, there could be this, and maybe it's true, reflection that I am blocking myself somehow. I choose to look at it like there's something greater than me that knows what it's doing. And so that's what I mean by like choosing by not choosing. I really am these days and every day only looking as far as the blank page that morning, talking about writing every day. I am in a relationship with an equal general.
Yeah.
And she has her visions and I have mine. And it's really hard sometimes with others that close, having an intense child, all the things. But yeah, my answer is like, I pulled the tower card last night for where I'm going. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure. I feel like my whole life is the tower card, but that's great. I don't think it has to be a full burn down this time, whatever. If it, and then I hear Taylor saying, man, fuck tarot, fuck astrology. Yeah. Get that shit off of me because I don't need that on me.
Totally.
And that's the existential to a fault line in there. That's the upside downer line in the intro of this, of just, I don't know. But I'll do it till I'm done. And the blank page, showing my stomach like a puppy, but also embodying my wolf now.
I like how you said that you'll do it until you're done.
Yeah, that's his line from AA. That's what they say. You could tell people all the different things like, okay, cool, do it till you're done.
Do it till you're done.
The other one is the SpongeBob thing. It's like, I'm going to go do XYZ 100 things. I'm going to take over the world. And SpongeBob will say, good luck with that.
Yeah, totally.
I think there's something about, my dad's been talking a lot about Lao Tzu and how he was going to leave the seventh gate of the seventh gate of the kingdom or the place. And as he's going, the guard says, wait, you didn't leave us with anything. You got to write it down, all your wisdom. So he was like, all right, shit. And went back. And that's the writings we have of Lao Tzu, is him going back. And then he bounced.
Wow.
So I think like it's really just us and us, the same way you were writing poems to yourself. And marriage is just another fierce mirror to see yourself. And same with being a parent. And it's not narcissistically about yourself, because I think when you really come to that internal marriage and as close to wholeness as you can, it then connects you to the bigger. But yeah, I'm just in my muddy dance these days. I'm trusting the art. I'm grateful for this show. It's the first time I feel like there's the closest thing to a clear manifestation. Just watching the people come on here, it feels like the least resistance I've had with projects.
I love that.
After a long time. So, I'm going to ride your coattails and Michael Mead's coattails, and I'm going to
Amazing.
play my role of whatever the messy thing I am, and do that and trust that the right people will show up and
Of course.
give me keys to their perspectives and vice versa, and just, keep doing my work and keep my head down, but my dreams up.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
I don't know. I mean, and maybe I have a block and maybe you're going to help and other people will help. But right now that's where I'm at, is just like, yeah, blank page theory.
Love
Man,
that.
that's why I write poetry, because I can be a lot more concise. I could have said that in one line,
Oh,
but
same.
it took like 6 minutes. All right. On that note, to me, a poet is a scout of the void. Many years ago, I was hospitalized for a chemically induced psychosis, which, in addition to alcohol, marijuana, insomnia, and starvation, was heavily triggered by poetry and existential obsession. To be a poet can be quite raw, a trembling nerve, a constant crucifixion. What is your experience with navigating the fine line of sanity and psychosis, if you have experience with that?
Yeah, I do. I don't. So, okay. The first thing that came to me, I always like to go on the first flash.
Yes.
Was second year medical school. I was in West Central Psychiatric Institute as a medical student on the danger floor, the lockdown floor. And I was interviewing. I haven't thought about this story for so long. So we would go in our little white coats. I'm like little white farm girl sitting there. And I was interviewing this massive beast of a man.
Yeah. Madman.
Madman. And I came into the interview feeling like he was schizophrenic and borderline and dangerous. And there were guards in the room. And then this psychiatrist who I deeply respected, this old man, was my docent. And he was outside like the glass where he could see in, but the guy couldn't see out. And there were, like I said, I had two guards flanking me. And I was asking him, we were sitting as far apart as you and I are. And I was asking him questions. And he was answering them fine. And then he looked at me and he said, you have a league of angels around you, and I'm sent to take you out. And then he lunged for me. And he just was very clear, looked me in the eye and said this. And he barely even touched me, and the guards got him. And
I'm smiling just because it's intense, and I've had my own experiences with that.
Yes.
To a T.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I left there shaking.
Of course.
And the doctor talked to me, and he said, what's going on? Where are you feeling? And I was crying, and I said, he was telling the truth. And he said, exactly.
Cool doctor.
He was, he'd been doing this for like 50 years.
Wow. And
I don't think of psychosis the same from that experience. I know that people see other realms. Who's to say what is real and what's not? I do know that every psychic that I've been to since, that's incredible. When I walk in the door, they're like, the angels around you, you can't even get the door, shut. Wow. Like there's so many.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah. And I feel them, and I feel like I'm very protected. And so my own madness is really in a lot of ways me just talking to the angels of other people, which I do every day. And so I think that it's I think that there's no line that, for me, that is delineating between the spiritual and the mundane, the occult and, the sacred and the profane. It's all holy, and it's all present in every moment, and in myself too.
It makes me think, I've been feeling this with Kimberly, Michael Mead, and now you, that I'm really inspired by Tom Robbins, actually.
Yeah.
Because I reread his entire catalog for like the second or third or fourth, I don't know. I love him. And at the end of rereading all his novels, I was down to his like short stories, and then I saw he wrote a children's book for adults called B is for Beer.
Okay.
And I love the idea of writing a children's book for adults.
Totally.
And like fairy tales and things like that.
I love that.
So I think we should perhaps, I'm going to pitch it, in a castle or in an alternate timeline, whether it happens or not, but it'd be really rad to write a little fairy tale together about what you up to? Okay, good. You're good. That's my producer hat. No rustling. Do a fairy tale myth about that, like sitting between the mad one and the doctor. And there's something about like mirrors on the straitjacket and this morphing of suddenly like the sanity line is like blurred and it's not,
Oh, yeah, no.
And it makes me think about Krishnamurti saying, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Absolutely.
Which in some ways can turn the right kind of madness into sanity and the wrong kind of sanity into madness.
Yes.
And that makes me think of Rumi of the Guest House. And, what my dad will say often is, if you don't occupy yourself, something else will. And seeing people possessed, being around a man who was like 6'5" in Harlem who attacked me from the back. Luckily, he just like football shoved me, but then turned and same thing. Like it was a different, and he was like, I told you never come here.
Yeah.
And it was not, he wasn't talking about like some beef in the neighborhood. It was some, and I've been with witch doctors in Africa. Anyway, I feel like we could write this really cool book. Again, whether it's meant to be or not, it came through.
Totally.
We'll see what happens. And this is maybe an interview in a psych ward in a different reality.
Absolutely.
Which then becomes just a wonderful podcast of friends with invisible angels all around. So
I'll tell you that, like, for some reason, all I date in this life, it feels like, is doctors. And they're all insane.
Yeah, I know.
Including me, right?
We
all have our insanity.
I feel bad. I just scolded my dad for making noise. I got to rub him on the knee. But no, I've noticed that a lot of doctors are, ones I've met, they're heavily medicating on the weekends and living debaucherous lives. Not all of them, or they're very preachy and it's rare that you meet like students, doctors who can be the student and the doctor.
Exactly.
But shout out to the doctors, especially the witch doctors.
Yes.
I like to say witch doctor. Wait, what did I say? Something about. Yeah, which doctor do you know who flows like this? I once heard that the root meaning of education is to coax the innate genius spirit, which apparently is separate from us somehow. Like the genius is an angel being that, has a relationship and bond with us, to help coax that out of us. I love the word coax in relation to education, and it's already residing in each of us, like the pearl you mentioned. As a teacher of poetry, what is your process of igniting the sleeping fires in your students and that kind of dancing next to them, and just, your experience with education in that form?
Okay. For me, it's the women that find me are always like, we're always mirrors. Like, right? Like it's like finding your tribe. And so they show up deep in their strength and in their warrior when they find me. Usually I always say, like, you have to make fists to climb those walls. And I get it. And so you'll see a woman with two hands and their fists like this. And I had to do that to get to the top of my mountain. And then I could be soft and unravel my fists. So when I see a woman angry and with fists and like 3 little cubs on her back and climbing her mountain, and she's like, fuck you, I'm like, you're climbing. You're exactly where you should be. You're angry. Good. And so...
And you can meet her there.
I can meet her there.
Yeah,
because I knew that I had to be there. You never tell a woman with her hands and fists, you need to unravel. No, she can't fucking climb like that. She needs to climb. And so I see that and I love it. I think that there's no greater tool on earth for change than an angry woman. You know, a mother that's angry that her son's being killed on the streets. Like, there's no greater tool for change than a mother's wrath, right? Like, our anger is purification. And even Jesus says in the Bible, be angry and do not sin. Be angry. Make the whip at the temple. Turn over the tables. That's the Jesus that I'm into. That wants change. And so I feel like we oftentimes have to reject. So I watch women completely reject and deconstruction of Christianity, like how I grew up, like just like fuck Jesus, fuck evangelicalism, and then swinging the other way, you know, and like being like where I am now. But I had to do that. I had to completely let that old belief system die to open up and read about every world religion. And to have it from within as opposed myself. To being pushed on you. Exactly. Yeah. And so when I see women in their process, I think that celebrating them where they are. Beautiful. Like just being like, yes, you're doing it. You're angry. You should be angry. And students in general and people in general. Exactly. That's where are you going next? You know? What are you going to do with that anger? What are you going to change? What are you going to burn to the ground? Do it. But don't sit in your fucking room and cry about it and write sad poetry forever. You know, like get that fire in you and make change to the light. Like at one point in my life, it was a black sky, right? But it's like, I would just ask, where's the light? Where's the light? And scan the sky. Where's the light? Where's the light? Where's the light? And it would be just a pinpoint sometimes and just go towards that, you know? And like, that's what saved me. Like finding the light in every situation, like in my divorce or in whatever, like, where's the light here? Just like cling to it. That's beautiful. And so I think that in teaching, it's that women show up as in their strength, and I'm able to like, some reason too, and I think this is deeply karmic. The women that show up want to be yelled at, want me to believe in them so much, because I do, and I'm so passionate about them taking back their lives as their own, the life that's always been theirs. I don't empower anyone. Your power comes to yourself. I don't give my fucking power away, you know? It's like when women come, and that's victim mentality, like saying like, oh, you know, I'm taking my power back. Okay, don't give it away, right? Like when women come to me, I'm always like, where's the light? Where are you moving toward? And it's time to fucking do it. No excuses, do it. What are you going to do this week? You know? And like you said, it's a guise, it's a pirate. That's what I am. It's all through a guise of poetry. Yeah, the old crazy Zen master. Exactly. Yeah. But it's not a poetry class, you know? Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I don't know if, or a guy on the wall. I don't know if men are allowed. But yeah, I'm opening it up. We do Thought Salon. That's cool. Yeah, man, we have a lot of similar. I want to open a coffee shop, Pink Hearse Coffee Shop, and art farm with 50% like growing organic albums in the fields and holographic plants mixed with real amazing agriculture and my wife's kind of pregnancy, motherhood sections. And anyway, it's cool. It's nice to just meet other beings who are doing it their own way, but
showing that, you know, you can navigate that kind of territory.
Yes.
Very inspiring. So let's see where we are. Getting toward writing a little music before I know you have to dance out.
Great.
To, yeah. For me, poetry is an equally rewarding and frustrating, alienating and connecting, agonizing and ecstatic journey. Like wild love, but never able to get close enough to the essence of our love and lust. What is your experience with poetry and how are you able to turn it on and off? So that idea of like the moth to the flame, or making love with someone and you can't fully connect, or maybe some people can, but I think the point is you're not supposed to. And that's what Rumi talked about God saying to the seeker something like, in this life, don't come too close. That'll ruin it. That's what God says to the seeker. Like, you're right here, but stay there. Because this tension is what creates.
I don't do that. I always fucking ruin it.
You what?
I
Ruin
always
it?
fucking ruin it.
Yeah.
No, I do. I'm unable to not get inside the fire of it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what we do as poets. But still, even for me, there's that loneliness that I find.
Yeah.
And the, you know, some days the poetry flows and it feels good, but even I notice those days can end up being sadder later in the day, as opposed to sad mornings that I work through and breathe through that turn into really happy afternoons.
Right.
And just that, that dance and how you kind of navigate that.
Right.
If you relate to that.
Yeah, can I read a poem on that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And AJ, are you good? Like we're all rolling and flowing? Okay, cool. Okay, perfect.
I have a poem on this that
Please.
I think I could say it.
I'm going to read one too before we close.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
If you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
This is how I feel about this. Like
the dance of tension.
The dance of it. And being unable to stand outside the fire, as Garth Brooks would say. I have to be in the fire. The want that lives in me for you to want me is stronger and more terrible than anything I could see or unsee. If it ever broke free, it would do what great, terrible things do. Stop the sea from pulling under, pour dams of concrete between, wield knives from cafeteria trays, handles made out of its own hair, then sharpen itself against those concrete walls in splitting seas. It could teach pain to pain. Humans have done worse, marrying the men that follow ones like you. The type of men that call home on their drive home, and you don't give a fuck that they are calling home on their drive home. That sleep beside me while I think of nothing but running down a mountain in the dark with you. The photo under my bed that my daughter will find too late, ask of too late, straighten the corners and pocket too late. A bird flies over me. Its shadow falls over my body and then leaves. This something inside me could close one eye, shoot it from the sky, tear off its wings while it was still alive. It's been done before with less ripping through the letters, the cheese knife you put in my stocking, holes and holes and holes in chess. The text I tried to claw out of my phone. You telling me you don't know. Insects that are born to only live a day. Your mouth breathing into mine. Still, this want for you to want me will never pull at your freckled hands. God on the 8th day made it that way so we wouldn't live forever. And this is why I pulled the curtains down at 8 years old to hide under them. But this want could tie my hair around the handle. It could press its blade to the place my lung and heart and muscle caved around you. It could carve your home from me. It could. But it will never bring you back inside my kitchen. The hydrangeas still in plastic, the bag of oysters, you handing me a stack of cookbooks you chose for me. Thank you.
Wow.
It's like that feeling of oneness, of universal oneness, and the insatiable desire to reach it is why I write.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the last question was going to be you asking me a question. So we did that.
Yes. Amazing.
I closed my eyes and opened your book to page 83. I wanted to close this conversation by reading this poem, and if there's anything you would like to say about it afterwards, or let the echoes hang in silence, either way. So I'm going to take that.
Yes. Yay.
Thank you. And then we can, Kevin sent me a birthday present of a new song that I didn't listen to, so I'm going to open it after this, and we can see what comes through. So this is page 83, Poems and Peonies by Chelsie Diane. One tornado I lived through got the house. It sounds like a train you are not on. You are tied like cartoon dynamite beneath the tracks. Though you are in the cellar lined with shaking cans of salsa, pickled peppers. The house was still standing, which was confusing to the neighbors, but the windows were in the carpet, the roof pulled off in all the places you cannot see from the road. Some people are hit by storms like this. They wear their red-bottom shoes, Botox their lines smooth, shingles glued in all the places you can see, the windows unbroken in the front. We hang photos over the water stains, but we've all lived under the same dark sky. And some have water gathering in pools in the ceiling and break behind the wheel of their Tesla or in the comment section of your poem. But tell me who hasn't picked up glass with their bare hands? Who hasn't ran for a bucket? Who hasn't made tiny repairs day by day just to remember the home that lives inside our bodies?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You read that more beautiful than I could.
I'm just listening. It's really, really powerful. And yeah, it was a random open, which I love doing. So that wanted to be shown. Wow. Happy birthday in the best way. I don't mean that. No, yeah. I mean, just like what I meant to say was that it's a really cool way to spend my birthday. And I couldn't ask for a cooler, day. Later, I'll get to hang with the family. And then this part of the day, to be able to create and be around a fierce beast creator surrounded by angels who puts their neck on the line the way I like to, and really stands for that. That's awesome. So before we close this and tinker with a song, is there anything you would like to add or let it all hang in the echoey silence of the ripple effects?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Much love, y'all, and we will see you soon.